Hello everybody, in today's episode we will learn how to integrate dialogue system, where we can set up dialogue on NPCs and the player can interact with them. Let's start. Before we can do any kind of scripting, let's just clean up the area and put some sort of an NPC in here. I have a frog already disabled in this place, so what I can do is I can just remove some of the elements in here, let's say this box, and put it over here and bring the frog closer, but need to decrease the scale of the collider. So that's a good size. And let's remove anything in here, just make it clean. That would be good. Let's save. And we will use this frog as an NPC that has a dialogue where the fox can interact with it. The first thing we have to do is we need to explain what is going to happen. First of all, we need the player to be able to interact with the frog in a sense that we have trigger with it. And as soon as we trigger, we need to show an indication on top of the frog, like a text kind of thing, which will indicate that this frog can be spoken with. And as soon as we leave the frog, the thing will go away. As long as we're interacting with the frog, when we click an input, the dialogue system will start. And what happens is we will have a window on top of the frog, and inside of it there will be text. We will have a preset of dialogues, let's say 4 sentences, and it will start step by step. And the first one will take the index of the first dialogue, and then it will start writing that dialogue like a typewriter. And as soon as it reaches the end, let's say it says, "Hello, fox," and that's the first dialogue. Then it waits for an input from the player, and as soon as we give an input, it resets everything and puts the second dialogue, and it does the same process over and over until you reach the end of the dialogues, which at the end will close the whole dialogue and then revert back. The indication says that we can speak again. This is a rough explanation of it, and we'll start first by doing the actual UI. Let's start. In order to make it happen, let's create an empty game object. Let's call it dialogue. I want to make sure that it's zeroed out. That's fine. Now let's bring it in a place to put it on top of the frog. Again, I'm making a separate prefab so we can use it in anything that we want. So it's more of like a component object rather than just to get to the player or the objects. So we have it as a component. This will be the main game object. Inside of it, we will create another game object, call it window. And this window will house the actual frame and the text inside of it. And to do this, we need to use Text Mesh Pro. So we'll go into 3D object and click on text using Text Mesh Pro. And if you're like me, you haven't imported yet, it will ask you that please import Text Mesh Pro. So all you have to do is click import TMP essentials, and it will take a couple of seconds, maybe 20 seconds, and right away you will see this big text. That's fine. Close it. That's not a scary thing. That's okay. Let's rename it, call it dialogue text. Let me hide it first because I need to set up the actual, the bubble or whatever thing you have in your mind. So I'll create a square, and looking through my assets, I'll need to find something that actually looks like a floating bubble, like in cartoons, where you can put text inside. What will be a good usage? This maybe? Or this? I think this looks pretty good enough. Let's put it here. Let's call it frame. Dialogue frame. And start making it look nice. Let's increase the size. While playing with the size, you want to make sure that you don't want to stretch it too much. That doesn't look good. So let's stretch it this much. And it's also depending on you. You want to know how much text you want to house in one dialogue. For me, I want to go in a sense that we can have 2 lines, maybe maximum. So I think this is good enough. As soon as I do this, I want to make sure that the dialogue frame is zeroed out, because I want everything to be 0 position according to the window. The same thing will go into the text. This is our text. Let's change the color to black so it's going to be visible. And let's decrease the size to 10 I think that's still too big. 5, 4, that's fine. Let's play with the scale in order to make it fit inside our frame. I think that's good enough. Oh, oops. Yeah, let's make it slightly more inwards. You can use this thing where you can change the shading mode. I like to use wireframe in order to see the frames, in the sense that it helps setting up stuff. So I think that's good enough. Yeah, but still from the bottom a bit. And the text still looks a bit big. Let's try 2, maybe 3. Oh, looks here. I think that's good enough. Sample text. Let me just copy sample text, sample text, sample text, sample text. I don't know how long this is, but it looks like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So we can say 10 to 12 words. That's enough. You have to keep in mind to know how long the text you want, because you don't want the text to go overboard like this one, for example. Let's say this, you have text all over the place. So you can use it this way. You can have something called auto size, which will make sure that even if your texts are becoming out of bound, you will make sure that they will be inside. So it was between 1 and 3. So the more text you write, the smaller it gets. I would suggest doing this one because it's fine. I'll keep it like this. So we've set up the frame, we've set up the text, and it is part of the dialog. So we have the window, which is going to be the actual floating pop-up. Now we have to add the other part, which is the indicator. Like, we need to let the player know that this thing can be interacted with. Let's look for something in here. We have something that indicates speech. Here we go, we got this one. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring it down a bit to make it look in a way that it's under the bubble. And let's increase the size. If you keep clicking shift, it will increase the size in a way that doesn't lose the aspect ratio. While without it, you can do this part. I'm going to keep clicking shift and doing this. I think that looks good. That's fine. Here we go. So we have set up the indicator and the window, which is, all of them are part of dialog. So this dialog is the main prefab that we're going to use. Window and indicators. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it as a prefab so we can use it anywhere. Let's make sure it's zeroed out, just for the sake of it. And let's bring it in a way up here. So I want it to be part of the frog. So that's the cool part of it. Let's remove this here. Let's say I want to put it in a frog. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it upwards, put it inside the frog, and it will just be there, right? Again, I need to just make this 0 so we don't have this offset problem. It's always good to zero out your stuff. So here we go. Now it's part of the frog. Let's align it in a place that looks good. I want it, you can put it here or in the middle. I like it to be slanted on the side. And let's bring this to be here. By default, this will be hidden, and this will also be hidden, and this will only show up when you come close to the frog. We have to start doing our logic. Let's create the first script, and let's call it dialog. Let's open up. Here we go. I'm gonna clean up this stuff, and I'm gonna start writing comments because this is gonna be slightly more extensive, because I'm gonna write the whole logic and then we're gonna test it out. So what we're gonna do is we need fields. And in the fields, we need, first of all, the window, the pop-up where it actually has text. And then we need the indicator, right? Afterwards, we need, let me start one by one. Let's go public, game object, let's say window. Public, game object, indicator, and then we'll start adding more stuff. We'll write something called here, dialogues list. And in here, we will have a list of string. It's basically the strings. I'm going to call it dialogues. That's it. Here we will have all our sentences that we're going to show. And in order to access the dialogues, we need some sort of a pointer. So what we will do is we'll create an index, call it index, which will tell us like you're pointing, you want to show the first dialogue and then second dialogue, etc. This is the index on let's say dialogue. And later on, when we start writing the dialogue, we want to write like you're typewriting it, so letter by letter. In order to do this, we need to point at characters. So we need another index. We call it character index. Private integer char index. Alright, let's do it this way. What else do we need? We need to create the initial methods. What do we need from the dialog system? We need start dialog and then end dialog. These are the main functions. And then what we need is we need some sort of a writing mechanics. So we'll call it writing logic. So these ones, let's start making the methods. Go public void start dialog, and then here we'll go public void and dialog. What we're going to do is we're going to write the schema, and then we're going to start embedding the scripts, the logic one by one. And to start the dialog, we will need to do the initial stuff. First of all, we need to show the window, and then we need to say, all right, if the indicator is visible, we have to disable it. Hide the indicator. Next thing we need to do is we need to set the index, which is this one. This is gonna point towards the list. Say like, start with this sentence or this sentence. Since we're gonna do this here at the start, we will make sure that start index at 0. So we'll start from the first letter. And as always, we have to go and start writing, right? Start writing, which will be this logic in here. Where in hide dialog, we will hide the window. We're gonna add more stuff, but we can't just predict all the things. So we will start writing the logic step by step. Here we go. How do we do the writing dialog? We can simply just put the text as it is, right? Like, let's say we have 3 sentences. The first one is, hi Fox. The second one is, how are you? Last one will be goodbye. So we can just put, hi Fox, and then how are you, and then goodbye. But we need it to be more cooler. It's like a typewriter. And to do such stuff, we need to wait for a while. And one of the stuff that we use in Unity is enumerator. Enumerator, let's call it writing. The cool thing about it is we can use waiting. It's the equivalent of tasks in C#, but it's Unity friendly. So what we need to do is we have to do the following. Write the letter or the character. And then we have to go increase the character index. So what that means is we write the first character, second character, wait like X seconds. It will be like in milliseconds, but we have to wait, and then restart. The same process. So that's the whole thing in a nutshell. So we'll start writing the logic and we will make it look more mature. First of all, we need to start the window, show the window. What we can do is we can say is window that's set active true, which is good enough. But what I like to do is I like to make sure that if we want to call the same thing over and over again, we put it in a separate script. So we call it only once, and then whenever we want to change it, it changes for everybody. So let's go ahead and say here, create a method called private void toggle window, and we'll give it a boolean. Let's call it show. What it does, it will call window that's set active show. So whatever we give it value, say true or false, it will pass it to the window. So instead of writing window that's active, we'll say toggle window true. So we showed the window, and then we'll do the same thing for the indicator. I'm gonna make another clone of this one, call it toggle indicator. And instead of having this one window, we have the indicator. We'll say toggle indicator false. So what happens, we remove the indicator, the small pop-up, and then we show the text frame. The next thing we have to do is we set the index to 0, which is going to be index equal 0, and then we start writing. Oops, start coroutine writing. We have some stuff that we've missed. I don't mean missed, but I mean we can make it look nicer. What we do is we will start this first sentence, and then it will write, and then it will wait for an input from the player, and then it will start the next sentence. So pointing at something and then start writing is going to be called over and over and over again. So we want to make sure that is in a separate method. Let's call it, I don't know, like get dialog, and we will pass is value of I, which is going to be the index that we want to set. Let's take these two lines, put them in here, and then here we go, say get dialog and put 0. Start with first dialog. Here what happens is we tell it assign the index to I, which is 0 here, but you can have it otherwise, you can put 1, 2, 3, etc. And then we tell it start writing. But what we're going to do is we need to make sure that we also zero out the character. So we'll do it in here equals 0, because whenever we want to start writing a sentence, we want to write the first character, and so on. Reset the character index. So let's recap what we've done so we don't lose track. We've created two methods that toggles the window and the indicator. And whenever we start the dialog, we show the window of this text and we hide the indicator. Then we tell it use the index I, which is 0 in our case here, and then we reset the character index, and then we call the start writing logic. But another thing we have to add in here is an indication that says we have started. Let's call it started indicate started boolean. Then that's good enough. Private boolean started, and by default it's false, but as soon as we start we make it true. Boolean to indicate that we have started. And to make sure that we have no problems, we want to avoid starting while we started. So if that doesn't make sense, so if we're in a dialogue, we don't want it to reset the dialogue if we click start again. So that can be done by putting an if statement here. Let's say if we have started, we just return. So we make sure that we can't go any further if we started. So we showed the window, had the indicator, got the character index 0, and selected the index. Start writing, we will do the logic in here. Strings are basically an array of characters. So what we can do is we need to access the first character and then write the second character, third, etc. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and string equals the current dialog, and this will be used from the list that we have in here, which is going to be called dialogues. And using the index that we've set up, we can access that sentence. In our case here, it's going to be the first sentence. So we go ahead, write dialogues, and access index. And here we will have the dynamic first sentence. We will start doing logic on it. What we'll do is we need to write it on the UI. And right now we don't have the UI in here. So let's make a reference for it. First of all, we need to use Text Mesh Pro. Second of all, let's go here. Text component. Let's go public tmp underscore text. Let's call it dialog text. That's very good. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and write dialog text equals plus, and you'll say, why are we writing equal plus? Because whenever we start the dialog, we will add character by character. So we cannot just say equals this character, because if we put equal character h and then I, it's going to go in h and then reset I and then space. So we will make sure that we keep appending the data. And what we need to do is we need to use the current dialog that we've selected and use the character index. Yes, so what that does is it takes the first dialog. Let's say the dialog is hello, and then takes that dialog, takes the first letter or character, which is H, and writes it. One thing we've missed to do is we're adding the text in here, but we want to make sure that this text component is also cleaned up, so it doesn't have any sentences in it, because if we write the first sentence and want to write the second sentence, we want to make sure that we need to remove that sentence. Clear the dialog component text. So we go dialog text, the text equals string.empty. You can do it like this, you can do it like this. It's the same result. So we've chosen the sentence, and then we've chosen the first letter. Then we need to increase the character index so we can access the next character. That's good. Afterwards, we need to wait. Yield return new wait, and then we need to wait a dynamic value. And in order to do this, we have to create a boolean up here. Wait, or let's call it writing speed. Call it public float writing speed. This we can change from the inspector to decide how fast or slow do you write the sentences. And it's basically the interval between writing every character. So we wrote the first character, we increased the index, we waited, and then we have to redo the same process again. We go ahead and start creating, writing. This looks good, right? Yes, but there's a flaw in here. Let's say the first sentence is hello, right? So it's H-I-L-L-O, so it's 5 characters. We finished the first character, waited, second character, waited, L, L, O, so, and then it keeps going, and then we'll have a problem because we finished the 5 characters, but we still keep on going. We're not checking if we actually went outside the index range. So to do this is we will make sure that after increasing the index here, make sure you have reached the end of the sentence. So as soon as we reach the end of the sentence, we will stop the writing and do something else, which is going to be wait for the player to click an input button to start the next sentence. And in normal life, we count from 1, but in programming, we count from 0. So let's say if you have a word or a sentence consists of 4 characters. So that means we have 4 elements. But when we want an index, we will go 0, 1, 2, 3, not 1, 2, 3, 4. What we need to do is we need to make sure that the index character, the index that points to the character, does not go over the actual sentence. One way to doing this is if we check if the char index is less than dialog, this one, that whatever the sentence that we have, we want to make sure that it's less than the length. For example, let's say we have hello, and hello has 5 characters. But what's going to happen is we're going to have H equals 0, E equals 1, L equals 2, L 3, O 4. So we have 4 is going to be the last one. And it's a common thing that whatever the length of your array, the last index will be the array minus 1. What we want to do here, we want to make sure as long as the index is less than the length, which is for example 5, if it's less than 5, we keep writing. Otherwise, if we reach index 5, we're going to have an error here because we don't have anything. So as long as we are under the length, we keep writing. Otherwise, we say end this sentence and wait for the next one. So that's a quick explanation. Let's go ahead and write it in here. This will make sure that we write the characters only in this sentence. That's brilliant. So let's recap quickly. We start the dialog, we enable the boolean, set up the UI, get the first index, reset the characters, set this empty, and start writing. As soon as we start writing, we're now writing hello Fox, how are you? And then boom, we reach here. We want to make sure that we can wait for an input of the player. And the one way of doing this is using update. And update, we can say that if the player clicked, let's say E, we start the next sentence. So to do this, we need an indicator. An indicator, we can put another boolean. Let's create a boolean, wait for next boolean. Let's make private bool, wait for next. And it's by default false, and we enable it as soon as we reach here. We wrote hello, and then we stopped here, and this became true. In here, what we have to do is we have to check if wait for next is true, and we have to see if the player get key down, if the player press the button that we have. Again, you can put whatever button you want. I'm going to use the button E to make sure that we do that same thing. As soon as we click E, we want to make sure to disable this will make it false, so we don't call it back again. And afterwards, let's look at it in a broader way. We wrote all the characters, but we're saying look at the first sentence. We wanted to go to the next sentence. And to do this, we have to modify the index. How to do this? We have already set up this method, getDialog. So that's going to be quite simple. We could say getDialog. And then inside, what we're going to put, we're going to put the index, but that's incorrect. We want to put the index plus plus. What's going to happen is we're going to increase the index value to 1. Like if it's 0, it becomes 1, and then becomes 2, etc. And we're going to write it. This is going to happen without any problems until you finish all the dialogues. It's going to be similar to what happens in here. Let's say you have 3 sentences. Hello, and the next one will be how are you, and then goodbye. Say we finished hello, and then we put how are you, and then we do goodbye, and then it's going to keep continue the next one, and when it does, we're going to have an error. So we want to make sure as well that we don't go outside the bounds of dialogues. And dialogues is this one that we have here. Let's say sometimes you want to have 7 dialogues, sometimes you want to have 1 dialogue. So this will make sure that we can only write within the scope of the list. To do this, we can go index. If index is less than dialogues, the count. For lists, we use count. For array, uses length. It's just a different syntax. So as long as we are within the bounds of the list, we keep writing or getting the next sentence. Otherwise, we want to end dialog, and this will make sure that we hide everything and do all the stuff. In here, what we just told the end dialog method that we've got, it's this one. Right now, it's empty. But in here, what happens is, if we have finished our current sentence, we are waiting, and we click the button, we just disable this will make it false, increase the index, and then if we still have sentences, we get the next sentence, which is going to be the same process that we have, writing the characters and then waiting. But if we reach the end of the sentences, we just end the dialogue. And in end dialogue, we will need to hide toggle window false and show indicator. No, actually that's wrong. We just want to hide the dialogue, and let's see what else do we need to do. Here we go. We just end the dialogue, Yes, and that should be good. Let's just recap on what we've done. We started, and we make sure that if we are starting already, we don't do anything. We start, we toggle, and then we get the dialogue, end dialogue here. We start writing the characters, we wait, and then while waiting, we can do the other sentences. Let's make sure here that if started is false, if we're not started, let's just resume, so we don't have to do anything here. So if we're not actually in the writing sequence, we skip everything. Let's go back to Unity to start doing some tests and then figure out what have we missed. We've got the dialog prefab here. Let's go and select it, open it, and add the dialog script. As you see, we have the window here, and then we have the indicator and the dialog text, and here we have the dialogues. And as for the writing speed, you can put whatever you want, but for me, I saw that 0.3 is a decent speed. If you put it 0.1, it will be too fast. Maybe 0.5, 0.7, it will be too slow, but for me, 0.3 is good enough. So these are the default values. Let's go back. Here we go. We got this in here. That's amazing. How can we test it? I think that has come up to your mind. To test this one, we have to make another trigger script. Why? Because I don't want this script to be part, like I don't want it to directly connect to something else that doesn't want to belong. For example, I don't want it to be connected to the enemy logic. I don't want it to be connected to the player logic or anything else. So in order to do this, let's create another script, call it dialog trigger. It's going to be a simple script, really easy, has two methods, and that's it. In here, what we're going to do is detect trigger with player. If detected, show indicator. If not detected, hide indicator. And while detected, if we interact, start the dialog. That's all about it. How can we detect the trigger is by using the onTrigger enter, which is a built-in in Unity. onTrigger enter 2D. This requires a collider, which is going to be really helpful for us because basically if you have an NPC, you have a collider. Otherwise, you can just add the collider, make a trigger, and that's it, you're done. And what we need to do here, we need to make sure that we catch and save a state that we are detected with the player. To do this, we have to make a private boolean, call it player detected. And by default, it's going to be false. And the next one is going to be on trigger to the exit. We will check here if we triggered the player, enable player detected, and show indicator. We're going to do the opposite here. If we lost trigger with the player, disable and hide. That's quite simple. We can do this by checking the values of collision. So we say if collision.tag equals player, and why that is because if you go to our Fox, we have the tag player. You might have a different tag, so make sure to put the same tag in here. Don't use the name, that's a really bad practice. Let's go back. If it's player, we go ahead and say player detected equals true. And then how do we show the indicator is by calling the script, the dialog script. So in order to call the dialog script, we have to make a reference for it in here. So we go ahead and go public dialog, we call it dialog script. And in order to call these ones, we have to make them public. So we want to use the indicator, let's make it public. Go back here, we use this script that we actually referenced, which we will do in the prefab in the inspector. So we call dialog script that toggle indicator, we make it true. But I want to make it more consistent, I will use this one. Since we make this true, I will pass the same value. Again, you can put true, it's not a problem. We will do the opposite in here. So let's take this if we lose contact with the player, we want to make sure that this is false, and then this will be false, and it will pass as false to the indicators. And here we will show and hide the indicator accordingly. Alright, and the next thing we need to do is, if detected, show the indicator. We have wrote this in here. If not detected, hide it. As soon as we detect the player, we want to wait for an input. And again, we'll use update. And inside update, we'll use the similar one that we've done in dialog, which is if we have player detected and the player has get key down, he pressed a button. In our case, I have the button E. Oops. So if you press E, we will start the dialog. And as simple as that, we just call the script dot start dialog. This is the script that takes care of triggering the dialog, which is quite simple. So what happens in here is we have set up the logic of if the player comes in, enable a boolean and show this small icon of chat. Otherwise, disable it. And while we're inside like the detection zone, if we click E, we start the dialog. Here we go. Let's just look at here. I think we can test what we have. Alright, so we've got this here. This is the dialog. We've set up the position and all. All we have to do is add dialogues. So let's add 3 dialogues. Let's say, hello Fox. How are you? Yeah. Goodbye. See, that's good enough. We have 3 sentences, and then we have the speed of 0.3 seconds between each character. So we'll see how it works. The next thing we need to do is we need to make sure that these things are never showed like this. You can simply disable them by default, but I like to do it via script because it's much nicer. So to do this, let's go here, create a method called awake, which calls at the start of the script initialization process. What we're going to make sure is when we start, we have to hide the window and the indicator. Double window and indicator. That's very good. So even if you see them in here, when the game starts, they will just get disabled. Alright, so we have this set up. Next thing we need to do is we have our frog and it has its own box collider. What we need to do, we need to add the connector script, which is the dialog trigger. And this script, what it's going to do is it's going to listen for the player collision and link it to the dialog, which is going to be this one. Let's save, play, and let's see how many errors do we get. Okay, so as soon as I come in, you see it shows the trigger. That's good. Go out, it goes away. It comes in. So if you're outside, we click E, nothing happens. If we come close and click E, we'll say hello. Wow, that's very slow. Let's make it 0.2. So right now, it wrote the first sentence and it stopped writing. Now it's waiting for the other one. And you can see it in here. If you click on debug, you'll see a boolean says wait for next. So if I click E, it will start writing the next one. That's cool. It says how are you? If I keep clicking, it says goodbye. And now it finished up. If I click E, it will just end up the dialogue. I've noticed something that it's actually really slow. So let's check what we've missed. Writing speed. Let's put something else. I want to put another wait in here, just to make it seem more natural. So it doesn't actually start writing. It just waits the same amount and then it rates. Okay, I think it's all good. So what we need to do is at the end of the dialogue, we need to re-show the indicator because we can speak back again to it. So we do this is, we have to do it in here because this is where we skip between sentence and sentence. And here is when we get the next sentence, while here is, check if we have more, check if we are in the scope of dialogues list. If so, fetch the next dialogue. If not, end the dialogue process. I just want to make sure that I write all the comments so we don't miss anything here. So when we edit the dialogue, we want to make sure that we toggle the indicator again, so it's true. Let's look into some things that we have to do here. I think that looks good, but I have to test something. So whenever you develop anything, you want to make sure you want to think of ways to break the logic. And one of the ways is, like right now, if I press E, start writing, and it's quite slow. Hello Fox, how are you? That's really slow. Oh my god, I forgot. It should be 0.3. I messed up. And what I was saying is, right now we are, doing the writing and we're waiting for the next sentence. What happens if I just go away? See, the text remains up here. So I want to make sure that as soon as we leave the area of connection or interaction with the NPC, we have to also end the dialogue. Let's go into the frog, into the trigger. It has to be done in here. So as soon as we lose contact with the player, we toggle the indicator, which is good, but again, we need to do something else. What we need to do is we need to go ahead and call dialog script dot end dialog. What this does is it just ends the whole thing. That's it. Boom. That's all. But since we're gonna be using writing, let's say you want to leave while it's writing, it's gonna keep calling this one. So we have to do something else as well. We have to go call stop all coroutines. This will make sure that if by any chance we're calling any waiting stuff or anything else, we stop it, halt it, and we close the whole thing. Let's reset the value. I want to make sure that it's actually proper, not 0.3, it's 0.03. All right. Let's see. Come here. Yeah, that's way much better. So if we leave, it's gonna go away. If we come back, nothing's gonna happen. So that's another bug. And why you think this one? It's because we have a boolean called started. And if you look here, which is a good thing because it actually doesn't break the code. So we have started in here, which is already enabled. So we have to disable it as well. At this place, we want to make sure that started is disabled. Started equals false. Also, we want to disable everything else that actually gets enabled, which is wait for next. Just in case, we might make disable, wait for next as well. Stop all enumerators. I think this will work just fine. So that's the cool thing about programming, is you keep finding bugs and you fix them. Let's give it a try. Here we go. Start talking. We leave. We come back. We can talk again. If we keep clicking E, we have it. That's it. We can just redo the whole thing again. That's amazing. Wow, that's so smooth. How are you? Like, you can even do it on the fly. You have write this. How are you? Good. And you have this gibberish, and that's it. That is amazing. So we have created a component, a decoupled component from anything else. So you can use this in this tutorial. You can use it anywhere else you want. All you have to do is use the prefab and then attach a script to the object that has a collider which is going to be the frog, or maybe you can have other people like guards, whatever you want, and then you reference the dialogue that you have. Plus, you modify the values like the sentences, the speed rate, and all these stuff. I think that's it. It was quite, condensed, and it has to be condensed because it's not a simple system. But this is a quite straightforward way of doing it. You can improve it, you can make it more diversified, you can make it in a way that actually works in big frames, small frames, faster writing. Maybe you can have animations where it actually blinks, tells you when you finished, you may make a new sentence, etc. So it's all up to you how to make it better. This is the simplest way to do it, basic, a very functional way. And I hope you liked this video. If you did, hit the like and subscribe, and also join our Discord channel to have discussions with me or other people who are actually looking for help or actually helping others. Apart from that, also leave comments down below, and as always, good luck, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.